Family, here we are. It is time to talk. Uh, First of all, let me give a big shout out to some of our, family members. Uh, IMP, Innovative Medical Products. Big shout out to them. Uh, Dr. Jason O'Geest, big shout out to him. Calzura, still a big shout out to them. We're here. Um, a lot has happened since last week. Let me fill you in. So, what we've all been waiting for is almost here. It's almost time. As you can see, I have the preliminary copy. Time to talk. What they didn't tell me is almost here. I did my pre-reads, okayed everything. It's almost time. I'm so excited. I know you're excited. Give me a little bit more time. It's almost there. And family, we're gonna be in this together. I got you. Um, just in general. So when you have issues at your facilities, whether it be getting ready for joint commission, whether it be just want to do an overview of your processes and trying to figure out if you're doing everything to standard. Sometimes you have to go outside of the facility to find or get somebody else to come in with a fresh set of eyes. What does that look like? Well, today I want to talk with somebody who specializes in that area, somebody who is the person you would call. And we're going to get an inside look at what bringing in interim management, what bringing in a consulting company, what does that look like? We're going to see today. I have none other than the CEO. You heard me, the CEO of Eyes to See Management and Consulting. So I went out and got the CEO of the company to come and talk to the family today. Family, please welcome Miss Keicha Brock to the stage. Miss
Hello,
Keisha, how are
everyone. Hey,
you?
family. I'm good. How
How
are
are
you?
you?
I'm
I
great.
am good. I am good. I'm good. Welcome to Time to Talk.
Thank you.
Um, for the people that don't know you, tell us who Keisha Brock is.
Okay. I'm Keisha. Keisha Brock. I'm the CEO of ISC Management and Consulting. Well, consulting. I've been in healthcare for 30 plus years. I've been in surgery and the SPD 30 plus years. I've run ORs. I've run SPD departments. So I've taken the expertise that I had, formed a team, and we are ICC Management and Consultants, and we'll come in and help you, give you the vision. Let our eyes come in and take a look at your inefficiencies, things that need to be improved, and we'll come in and help you assess it and help you improve.
Oh, okay, okay. Danny, thank you. Uh, yeah, I'll let everybody know when and where they'll be on sale and all that stuff. So thank you, Danny, for your support. Um, in getting you here, Keisha, I have to go and put you on the hot seat because I'm former Army. I heard that you were former Air Force. I ain't gonna hold that against you. I ain't gonna hold that against you. Also, being from the ATL, I heard that you like the Saints. So I ain't gonna hold that against you. We here. We're not
Oh
gonna talk about
no,
that
you
right now.
about to start
You
something
know,
in here now. We got to
so
start
I'm
something.
just saying, I ain't gonna hold that against you,
We'll
but
keep it.
so uh, 30 plus years. Um, what I saw that you managed OR
Mhm.
and you were manager of SBD.
Correct.
Tell me about that transition and how you were able to transition from the operating room to SBD with, with it being the two separate areas that one relies on the other. How were you able to use your knowledge from the OR to help you in the SBD?
Well, the OR and the SPD are basically interchangeable. We both have a mutual beneficial relationship. One
Okay.
can't exist without the other. And that's sometimes a fallacy that people think. They think of just SPD or they think of just OR. If SPD didn't do their job, OR couldn't do their job. If OR didn't do their job, SPD would not exist. So they're mutual beneficial. The transition was I was a surgical tech when I was in the Air Force, and
Oh, here
I
we go.
you had the choice, but you made the wrong one, but that's okay.
Oh,
Yes, I was a surgical tech in the Air Force, and when I came out of the Air Force, I took a job as a surgical tech, and materials management position came up open in the surgery department. So I started off as a materials manager, and as the materials manager, I supervised the instrument room. And then it was a little different. It was a instrument room. It was, not as many standards. I shudder to think of some of the things that we used to do, but it was
right,
the instrument, and I started supervising the instrument room. And then also, when you're in the military and you're a surgical tech, there is no such thing as a SVD tech. The SVD is run by OR techs. So
right.
you have to do your rotation in SVD when you're in the military as a surgical technician. So all the surgical technicians were in SPD. So I knew what SPD was. I was familiar with it because we had to do our rotations through SPD. Once I was a materials manager in the OR and I wanted to further my career, I went and got a bachelor's degree. Then I transitioned into operations. I was a business manager and then I transitioned to operations and I was in the OR doing the budgeting, statistics, productivity, um, the CERs, all the purchases and stuff, and I directly manage uh, the SPD department also.
So from moving from just the search tech to materials, getting a bachelor, becoming in charge of operations, that automatically puts you over the SBD portion.
Well, because I had experience already being a SPD tech,
Okay.
and this position directly managed the SPD. I directly
Okay.
managed the SPD materials manager, the biller. I was the operations manager for perioperative services. So I handled all
Okay.
the business functions, but I also directly managed the SPD department. And because I had a bachelor's degree, I went ahead and got my master's. Because in order to be an operations manager at that time, you had to have a master's. So when I got my master's, so that I had the background, and the rest is history.
Okay. So a direct correlation from moving from the OR to
Mhm.
SBD. I too, like yourself, was a surgical tech in the military, so I understand that transition that people don't really get all the time. That
Correct.
if you're one, you're both. So
Correct.
you actually do work and transition. You know, you go to work that morning, you may be scrubbing a heart case. By the afternoon, you're downstairs doing the instrument. So
Exactly.
to have that kind of flexibility is a good thing. So you just basically parlayed that information, that training into search tech in the civilian world, got your degrees, and moved into sterile processing.
Correct.
So from just those experiences, what led you to creating Eyes to See Management and Consulting?
There was a need. There is a need out in the field now for people that have the experience to come in, because you'd be surprised at the number of facilities that you go to. Um, they don't have the people or the experience that they used to have. A lot of people are leaving the field because they're burnt out. It's a thankless job. You always get blamed for whatever problems, and you don't always get thanked for the thousands of sets that you always do. And there was a
Right.
need, and I was the resident expert in the city and at the facility that I was at, and everyone would call me and ask me questions. How do you do this? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And because there was a need, and then I had people coming in that were consultants, and I was giving them the answers, and I was helping them out. And then a light bulb went off and said, "Wait a minute, Keisha, you're giving them this information. You're qualified to come out here and go into facilities and let them know what they need to do." And the unique part of it is I'm not just a surgical tech, I've run an OR. So when we come up with answers, we're coming up with an answer that's best for the OR and best for SPD, because it's a partnership, it's a team. And we don't go in to point fingers and say, "Oh, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong." We look at the opportunities that are there and look at them and see how we can improve them. But we look at it both from the OR standpoint and the SPD. You get buy-in from the OR and you get buy-in from SPD. And also you get buy-in from your physicians. And if you can get the buy-in from all those people, it makes your job a whole lot easier.
Okay. And that was going to be one of my questions when it came to um, having worked both sides of the fence, and you come in to a facility, whether it be to just assess their processes or to provide that interim management. When they look at you as that business owner and says, "Hey, you have OR experience, you have SBD experience," does it tend to, I guess, push the needle one way or the other? Like, hey, can you look at this from an OR standpoint? We need, or is it, hey, you're here for SBD, not the OR? How do you keep people on that balance of I'm here for both?
When I go in, I tell them I'm an OR person, but then I'm an SPD person. And I go in to build a bridge, to build a gap between the two and make both of them know how important they are to the process. And then you go in and let them know it's a partnership. I need your help. I need you to help me do this. And if you want this result, you want this answer, we have to work together as a team. So I go in because I'm both, because the OR is they're kind of they're, they funny.
Territorial?
I'll say funny. Yeah, they're very territorial and they funny, and they don't
Okay,
accept everybody. But I go in
right.
as that OR person because I talk their lingo. Walk in a room, I know how to, set up a room. I can circulate your room. I can open up your sets. But I'm not going in there just telling you. I'm not pointing out everything that you're doing wrong. I'm coming in asking, look, I need your help. We need to do this. We need to do that. But then when I go to SBD, I'm back here backing up SBD saying, hey, you know what? They need this, they need this, they need that. So I'm there as their resource, also letting them know I'm an SPD person. So I go in and I read your board. I'm looking at your board. I know how many cases you're doing. I know what you're doing, what's going on. So they see that I'm there for both of them. I'm here to back up the OR, but I'm here to back up SPD. I'm not here to point fingers at either one because once you start pointing fingers, nothing gets done. But I'm here to come up with I don't want to say problems, but opportunities where we can improve.
All right, like just Tracy just said, it is good to build those bridges. So, as part of your consulting, if you see that let's uh, let's say some of the issue is from an OR standpoint, but you were brought in to evaluate the SPD, do you sit down with that OR director or surgical services peri-op director and say, okay, I am evaluating SPD, but I see there's some opportunity here.
Yes.
Do they allow you to have that flexibility to say, if it is the OR, hey, we need to work on this because it's OR, not SPD? Because, like you
Exactly.
said, we get the finger pointed, but if the solution is a dual solution, do they give you
Correct.
that leeway to say that?
That's handled up front. When I'm
Okay,
called to come in and consult, I'm telling you up front. I'm looking at not just SPD because I can't look at your logistics from SPD without going to your OR because they're
right.
both interchangeable. So if you want me to come in and you want an answer or you want results that's going to make change, you have to allow me the flexibility to look in the OR and to look in SPD because decontamination starts in the OR. It doesn't start in SPD, it starts in the OR. So we need buy-in from the OR for them to do what they want, for them to do what they're supposed to do. So if you want clean sets, let's have a bucket of still water on your field with a Ratex, so I'm flushing and washing as I go, so that when I get down to SPD and decontam, my instruments are already flushed out. I've taken out the gross contaminants that's already on there because I've started that decontam process.
Oh, okay, okay. Good evening, Casey. How are you, Casey? Uh, that's good to know. Like, so you start at point of use.
Correct.
So that follows the instruments through the whole entire process because the point of use, as you said, it starts on the back table. Are they doing those preliminary steps to get it ready to come down to SBD? And again, I can say there's not a lot of uh, of that happening. So
Exactly.
when you do that, how are the techs and stuff responding to you being in the room looking at their processes?
Well, I come in as I'm not coming in like, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong. I'm coming in requesting their help. I'm telling them I
Okay,
need your help. We need to get this done. We are a team. We need a solution to this problem. So I'm not coming in pointing fingers and I'm coming in making them aware of, I've been where you are. I know how it is with turning over instruments. I know how it is with getting a set that don't have the proper instruments in it, or is missing the core stuff that you actually need, or having a set that has bowel burden, having a wet tray, having a tray that has a hole in the wrapper. I'm coming from where you are. So my job is to make sure that you have everything you need when you need it. But in turn, I need you to help me out also. I need you to
Okay.
do things that you need to do also.
Uh-oh. So here go our first question. It's gonna get the fire started. Miss Yolanda Griffin said, "Can a patient catch something from bad sterile equipment, or how would one know tools are contaminated?"
Yes, and yes, and yes. If it's not
Okay.
properly cleaned, it's not sterilized. We've learned that.
Right.
It used to be that, you can, they said that as long as you sterilized it, it's okay. But now through um, trial and error, what we've seen is if it's not properly cleaned from the beginning, if it's not properly decontaminated, it's not sterilized.
Right.
So yes, you can get HAIs, hospital-acquired infections, from instruments that are not properly sterilized and not properly cleaned. And how
And
do
then
you know that they're contaminated?
right.
Sometimes you don't know. That's why you have to critically think. You have to look at your steps. You have to look at your processes. You have to look at your indicators. You have to look at your tape. And when you're looking at your indicators and looking at your tape, it is not just the job of SPD, it's the OR also. I can put all my indicators in my tray, but if the person that's up in the OR is not looking at the indicators or not looking at the tape or not looking at their wrapper, it's mute because it's a team effort. And that's why there's
Right.
checks and balances throughout the entire process because it's a team effort. It's not just SPD, it's all of us together.
Yeah, just to reiterate that on checking the indicators, like I said, making sure you have both locks on, making sure there's no hole in the wrappers. That is definitely those secondary checks when they get to the OR that's supposed to be happening. Did I have a hole in my filter? All these things are supposed to happen, and that's how we would know if something's contaminated. I know they find some things at the point of use. They do find if something's happened when you go to use a suction and it was clogged with something. You do find them in that, unopportune time.
Correct.
So you don't know it just by looking at it all the time. It is
Correct.
that careful inspection when you're setting up your back table, setting up your mayo stand, and making sure your instruments were open and stuff like that, Miss Griffin. So yeah, definitely a twofold scenario. Yes, you can catch stuff from improperly sterile stuff, and it is our job to make sure we're inspecting, but it's also the OR's job to make sure that they're looking to just in case we did miss something.
Correct.
So um, that's a great answer, though, by the way. Uh, in reading your bio, one sentence stuck out to me that I wanted you to expand on for the people.
Okay.
It said that you check critical areas that directly impact the operational effectiveness of the sterile processing area. So, from a sterile processing standpoint, what would those critical areas be?
As we said before, it's all interchangeable. We start in the OR, but then we come in and we go to decontam. We're looking in decontam, seeing if you're doing your three sink method. Are you rinsing? Are you flushing? Are you doing it? We look at the critical areas of everywhere that the instrument is going, that we're following the process, that we're looking at our IFUs, and we're actually following the IFU and how it is supposed to be processed. So we look at each step, prep and pack, assembly,
What do you say?
sterilization, and then once it transitions back to the OR.
Okay. She go back to that.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. I'm sorry, I
Can
didn't
you hear
hear
me?
you. You were breaking up.
I said you had went out for a second there when you started talking about decon and the three sync method, and then we lost you for a brief second there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying that the OR is essential to looking at. So that's a critical area logistically. Looking at the instruments, how
Okay.
they coming down. How are they coming down? Are they in a container? Is it contained? Is it sprayed? Are your ratchets open? Is your stuff open? How am I transporting this? How long did it sit upstairs before I transported it downstairs? Did it sit in the hallway for an hour? Did it sit in there for 2 hours? Do I have flexible scopes in there? Are my instruments all jumbled together? So I look at that first operationally, logistically in the OR, and then you go through decontam. You're looking at
Oh,
the
wait.
areas in
Let
decontam.
me ask you something though. I know you
Mhm.
said that just from that time frame, but with the pre-cleanse and the pre-enzymatics, are they designed so that if it had to sit there for an hour, would it be okay?
It
And that's a
depends,
question for everybody.
and it depends on the brand that you're using.
Okay.
Because just because I've used several different brands, so I'm not even gonna say a brand on here because whatever you're using, you use, but it depends on the brand and what you're actually using. Because some of the stuff is
Okay.
a gel, is it's like it comes out in a gunk and it gets on there, but it
Right.
doesn't keep moist. If we're doing what we're supposed to do in the OR, we're flushing and we're cleaning as we go, most of the bowel burden has been taken off. But if we're not, we do spray it, but it depends on what brand of the item that you're using to keep it moist. Because all of them, just because they say they keep it moist, it doesn't. And by the time
Okay.
it gets to SPD decontamination, the instruments are dry. You go in there, you're looking at it, and you're trying to see, is there foam on it? Is there something on it? Is it blood dripping off of it, to see if it has actually been sprayed.
So as part of your process, if that is something that you're seeing on a regular, like stuff coming from the OR, they sprayed them, but due to whatever time restraints or turnover or whatever, and the case card doesn't come down immediately, and you see that case card and the stuff isn't moist and wet to the look, just from a visual aspect.
Mhm.
Is that a process thing that you say maybe you need to change your product, or can we improve the getting it downstairs quicker? How would you approach that scenario?
Well, I would approach it going to the OR manager. So I would assess it not just for one off. Is this was this a day that we just had a whole bunch of instruments and they just didn't come down? You can't go to a department in one day and assess their operations. You have
Right.
to stay there for at least 3, 4 days to assess the operations and see what's going on, see what type of cases. Were you short staffed that day? And I know everybody's dealing with short staffing, but if it's a habitable problem that instruments are not getting down, I don't mind having the hard conversation.
Okay.
You have to have the hard conversations in order to make change come about. So having that conversation, letting them know, hey, this is not up to standard. This needs to go down within this amount of time. And then we need to look at what you're actually using, because if the product that you're using is not giving you the end result that you're supposed to do, what it's supposed to do, then maybe we need to look at another product. Because I understand, because I'm an OR and an SVD person, things are
Right.
not always going to get down all the time. If you're short staffed, everything is not going to get downstairs right then and there. But because we look at it, because I'm not just looking at, is this a one off? I'm looking at the whole thing in totality. And we come up with a game plan and say, well, wait a minute, why don't we tweak this and say that our time limit is this? And then now they have timers that you can actually put on your case card to know how
Right.
long did it actually sat out there. And then
Right.
that's
Right. Right.
here also to let us know, if we put this timer on it, now I have evidence. Because they'll tell you, oh no, I brought that right down. I made sure it came down right then and there. No, my timer says that it sat out here for 2 hours. And then I go and look at the cases and saw that that case finished at 1 o'clock and now it's 5 o'clock, and that said it. That case card is just not getting down to SPD.
All right, family. I just want y'all to know that yes, I brought her on to talk about the management and consulting, and where we're at right now is how that's twofold. How we're bringing the OR piece into the SBD piece, because if we're all talking about quality, efficiency, productivity, work throughput, then it's important to know that it starts at the beginning. And that's where that great points are coming from, that she evaluates from the OR piece on down. So when we come back, we're going to get, okay, the cart's going to be coming downstairs, and we're going to get to what happens when it comes down, but we're going to take a quick commercial.
Why bundle when you can bump? The Surgical Bundle Showdown. Sterile is easier, faster, and safer than bundling towels. Sterile, certified sterile, lint, and latex free. Soft yet rigid surgical positioning. SteriBump is a sterile, cost-effective, time-saving alternative to cloth bundling for patient protection and support in the OR. Innovative Medical Products created SteriBump, a latex-free, contoured foam block to significantly reduce foreign particulates while providing the patient and the surgical team a physical platform that can securely elevate a patient's limb in the sterile field when required. Protected by guaranteed sterile packaging. Why bundle when you can bump? Contact Innovative Medical Products to set up a free trial.
And we're back. So yes, definitely great thanks to Innovative Medical Products, SteriBump. I know that if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's a great alternative to wrapping the towels. These are lint free, so you don't have to worry about any of that. And also, as you saw, Scrub Ball is coming. If you haven't been, definitely check it out. Get you some tickets. Let's come out and celebrate the industry family together. Keicha, we're here. You highlighted certain things. You're at the back table, you're watching that process, you're trying to see, are they taking care of the instruments from that point of use? Are they using the sterile water? Are they wiping off the bioburden as they're using? Okay, yes, they started that process. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Then you get them in the bin, they're ready to send them downstairs. What are they spraying them with? Is it an effective spray? Is it something that is actually going to keep it moist and ready for sterile processing when it gets downstairs? You've corrected that. So now we get it downstairs. What is that evaluation like?
First, we're stepping into decontam and we're looking at your PPEs. All PPEs are not created equal. Does your staff have the correct PPE on? Because you want to protect your staff. You want to make sure that they have on a gown and gloves that are actually in a shield. Shoe covers optional, but you want to make sure that they have the PPEs on that they need. I've seen places where they just use a little plastic little apron. Some people use a gown, but we assess and make sure that based upon the type of procedures that you're doing and the type of instruments that's coming down, do you have the proper PPEs? Are you properly outfitted? Do you have the tools? Do you have the supplies that's needed in your decontam area? So I'm going in looking and seeing what's in your decontam area. Do you have magnifying glasses? I want to see the equipment that you're actually using to clean the instruments. Because prior to you cleaning the instruments, if you don't have the tools that are needed to clean them properly, that could be why you're having a problem and not getting the results that you want to have. So first, we're going to go in and assess your PPE. We're going to go in and look and see. It
So
sounds like
interesting. I said interesting. I gotta ask.
okay.
So you see the PPE. You said it's based on the types of trays, types of procedures, and so does that really affect them in decon if they don't have? Like I know you're saying like a gown is not a gown. Every gown is not created the same. But if they've
Right.
been using this, as you say, the apron, and that's what they use, and you go in and you say, well, the apron's not effective for what we're trying to do because you're doing these type of cases. Does PPE really make that much of a difference when it comes to that? If they're being protected from what they've been using, does the PPE actually make that much of a difference?
How do we know that they're protected? How do we know that they're being protected? If you care about your staff and you care about what your staff, you should care about what they're wearing. You should make sure
Okay.
that they're protected completely, that there is not ambiguous. There's no questions asked about it. You want to make sure because your staff is your biggest asset. And if they can't do what they need to be assured what I have on is protecting me. I'm not bringing home something that I didn't come in here with. So you want to
Okay.
make sure that your staff is adequately clothed, have the correct PPEs on, and that we're not, because I know they're coming out with a standard, I think, for PPEs, because they're rating them now based upon, different, ratios. But I was saying before, with depending on the type of procedures you're doing, if you're a little surgery center and you all are doing, lump and bump cases that doesn't have a lot of blood, minimally invasive stuff, then we may be able to use a PPE created for that type of area. But if you're doing total joints, you're doing hearts, you're doing robotics, you're doing this stuff that a lot of blood and other stuff is just flying around, you need to make sure that you're adequately protected, especially now with all of these diseases that are going around. So we want to make sure that your staff is adequately protected, because that's first.
Okay.
And I put that
Okay.
on here because a lot of times people don't look at that, but you want to be assured. You want your staff to be assured that they have the best PPE that's going to protect them while they're actually doing this job of cleaning instruments and cleaning bowel burden and cleaning bone and fluids and stuff off the instruments. So we go in there and we're looking at your PPE. Then we're going to look
Okay.
at your tools to make sure that you have the tools that you actually need to actually do the job. How many sinks are you using? And I know people are saying, I can't get capital funds. I can't get the time of I am here to tell you what it is that you need if you want to get a certain result. Whether or not you choose to do that, but I am here to make you aware of the things that you need. I understand constraints about budgets and not getting stuff, but there's creative ways that we can do stuff. Because I had at one time I used to only have two sinks that I can use. So we did our three sink method with two sinks. We would just wipe with the little sandy wipes in between and let them sit. So we still did the three sink method. So there's ways to do it and be creative. It's not always takes a big capital outflow. But once we're in Deacon Town, we looked at your PPEs, we're looking at the tools that you need. Then I'm assessing what are you doing while you're there? Are you doing your three sink method? Are you rinsing first? Are you flushing? Are you just flushing with water? Are you using a brush? Are you using a pipe cleaner? Are you opening up everything? Are you sitting there looking at your instruments? Are you putting them in the sonic? Do they supposed to go into the sonic? Do you have an IFU available so that you can know that they're supposed to go on the sonic or not supposed to go on the sonic, or how they're supposed to be cleaned? And then once you do that, is it something that goes into the washer? Is it something that tells you that it goes into the washer? I'm looking at all of those things. I'm looking at what you're using. What are you using to clean? Is it a neutral pH? What is it? Is it, what is it on the sinks? What's the temperature of your water? How often are you changing your water out? Is it being changed with every case? Or is it being changed throughout the day? We're looking at every single step throughout the entire process to make sure that we're following the standards. And we can come up with creative ways to change them, but we want to make sure that we're following the standards and we're doing everything that we need to do. And then once
Uh,
we're in town, we go to the other areas. Go ahead.
oh no, you're fine. I just wanted to just say, um, from an aspect of that. So you're going from a PPE process through the whole process, sync, sonic, all of that complete process. Now, what if you're, yes, you said the recommendation. If we're going by the standard, it's supposed to have the three syncs. They don't have the three syncs, even though you recommend it, and they say, hey, my budget, my budget. You go back then and say, well, you can also do
Correct.
this to,
Give you
okay.
alternatives.
So you
Because
give
we
them the
have to think
alternative on top
outside.
of, okay. I
We
saw
don't
Arlene
always
checking in.
I'm sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
you're fine. No, you're fine. Go ahead. You said,
I said we don't think inside the box. We have to think outside of the box. We have to come up with creative ways. And just because there's a standard, every place is different. No place
right.
is the same. So there's not a one size fits all. So we try to look at your operations, look at what's going on, look at your case mix, and find a way to come up with recommendations that can work for your facility. Something that's easy to do, that you're able to do. Because you don't want to come up with all of these grandiose ideas and all of this stuff that's just not attainable. or stuff that you give it to them, and your staff is looking at you crazy like, how am I gonna do that? So we try to make sure that we come up with attainable, sustainable ideas.
So even down to that, like you say, we use the 3 sync as a guide, but you say, okay, the standard says this is what you should have. I know you're working with this, so in doing that, this is what you should be doing.
Mhm.
That's how you present it to the powers that be to say, hey, you can stay compliant by doing this, or you make the suggestion. Best practice says you should be purchasing
Correct.
3 sinks. Okay, a 3 tier
Correct.
sink.
So you make the recommendation, but then you have to make something that can work within their, facility.
Until they can buy or
Exactly. You try to
purchase or
come up
whatever they need to.
now. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's
Okay.
non-negotiable. You need to have this. If you don't have any, let's say water, what type of water are you rinsing with? If you're not rinsing with the correct water that you should be, some stuff is non-negotiable. But you get a report that's going through everything that we've seen, and we tell you our recommendation. We tell you what the standard is, and we try to give you an alternative. But sometimes it's just not. You can't have an alternative. You need to do this. Now, whether you choose to do it or not, I am telling you what the standard is and what the recommendations is and what you should do. But I understand about budget and having to wait. And if there's a creative way to come up with something different, we try to come up with something different.
Now, in saying that, let's get back to one thing. You said you take a few days to do this assessment. What if a few days isn't enough? When people bring you on site or bring your company on site, what's the average time that it takes you to do a full assessment?
3 to 5 days, at least a week.
So the 5 days or 7 days, whatever, that's what it would take from you to go from top to bottom, see
With
the
an
processes, evaluate the processes, and give a detailed report on what we should try to do, and go on
Correct.
and go. Okay,
Correct.
so
And then it's
and
also depending on what are you bringing me in for?
I was just
What
about
are
to
your
ask that.
problem areas? What do you want me to focus on? Because I can focus on everything, but then if I'm seeing it, I have an obligation to tell you what it is. I'm seeing it, what I'm seeing, or what I see that's not occurring. I have an obligation to make you aware of that. Now, if you choose not to do anything with it, okay. But I have an obligation to make you aware. But usually, a full assessment can take 3 to 5 days. And depending on what the need is, it depends on how large the facility is. Sometimes
Right.
you can be there longer. So if it's a smaller facility, 3 to 5 days. If it's a larger facility, and then I ask those questions up front. How many cases are you doing per day? How many loads are you running? How many instrument sets are you sterilizing? How many different clinics do you also have to do, the sterilization and the decontamination for also? So there's certain questions that we're asking up front that gives us an idea of how things should be done and what we need to do when we get in there.
Okay, so that leads into the next question. Is a departmental evaluation different, or what's how does it differ to, oh, I need you to come in and get us joint commission ready? Like, so I know that when people start getting in that joint commission mode, it's a lot of changes, it's a lot of things that go behind it, and it is again that team effort. I saw somebody say, hey, when you can work as a team, it's a great thing, but
Mhm.
then you're back to the OR. Okay, y'all need to have this, and this, and it trickles down back to SBD. Is that same time frame, or does it
No,
differ because now you're talking joint commission and we need to do a little bit more deep diving?
we need to do it takes a little longer, and then I want to see what was your last joint commission survey assessment. I
Okay.
need to know what were you what did they look at you for? What did you get wrong? What did you get right? What's going, what's I need to deep dive and see exactly what we're looking at. So if you want me to come and get you joint commission ready, that takes a little longer. And then and that all goes into what kind of cases you're doing, but your last assessment gives me an idea. And I understand that things change from there because you may have had turnover and different things, but there's going to be, based upon your last assessment, Joint Commission is coming back looking for certain things. So
Okay.
if you say, for instance, they found bowel burden in sets the last time that they were there, we know they're going to go back and look for bowel burden in the sets, even though they may
Okay.
have cleared you, they're still going back and look for that because they always look at the last assessment that you did also, and they're going to look and we know they're going to focus on that. So that depends on. So it's a certain time frame, and that's ironed out with your senior leadership.
Okay. Just okay. So you came in, you saw that we had these deficiencies last time.
Mhm.
Is that where you start your focus at as a consulting part of it? Is you do you start there to see, hey, you got dinged on this, did you fix that first? And
Correct.
then go through and say, okay, now we
Correct.
can check out your
Correct.
process. Now we can check
Correct.
out this. Now we can check. Okay, so just wanted to
Well,
make sure that part.
yes, you focus first on the things that you were initially had wrong, but then you still have to do an overall assessment. Depending on what, if you want joint commission ready so that you can pass, you don't know what joint commission is going to look at. I'm assuming that they're going to go look at your sets, but maybe they're going to come in there and look at your decontam area. Maybe they're going to come in and look at your equipment. Maybe they're going to come in and look at your bios. Maybe they're going to come in and look at your tracking system. They're going to bust open your sets. Maybe they're going to come in. You don't know. So you have to be ready for anything that may come. So you want to come and get the low hanging fruit first. And then there's some tricks of the trade that I've learned from dealing with joint commissions because the last surveys that I've done, we've had no findings. And it's not that we had everything right. It's just that you have to know there's a certain, I don't want to give away all my trade secrets, but if you want me to come in there and
See,
help
that's
you put
I
me
say
in,
that's just like
yeah.
a Saints fan. That's just like a Saints fan trying to keep it to themselves. But
Oh,
it's
look
okay.
at
It's okay.
this.
It's okay.
Okay,
It's okay.
okay. Dirty bird, dirty bird.
All right. All right. So, um, low hanging fruit first. Then we move into the different aspects of. Okay. So you came in. You saw the previous assessment. You see that what they got dinged on. Some of that's still questionable.
Correct.
Does that make your assessment go a little harder? Because if you didn't fix it from the last joint commission to now, how can I fix you in 3 to 5 days? Like, so how does that work?
Well, it's each place is different. Each assessment is a little different, and everything depends on what it is you're telling me that you want.
Okay,
What are your needs? What do you want me to accomplish? If you want me to have you joint commission ready, I might be there for a month. I might be there for 2 months. Don't call me a week before joint commission is coming because I can't help you. You have to call me prior to so that we can make the necessary changes. And a lot of times with joint commission, also, if you are able to tell them, I know that this is a problem, but I have a plan, we have a process in place, and we're transitioning to this new process. They will
right.
understand that you're working through it. So they're not expecting you to be perfect. But if you are already aware of certain problems and you already have a solid process that you're working on and your staff can speak to it. That's important also. Your
It's
staff
definitely
has
about
to
speaking
be able
to
to
it.
speak to it because I can know everything. I can tell you everything you're doing wrong or right or but if your staff has not been educated and if they don't know if you haven't discussed it with them and they don't know what the issues are and they are not part of the process with fixing it, it's mute because they want to make sure they don't want it all looking pretty on paper. They want to make sure that the staff is aware, they know the reason why, and they can speak to it and explain it. Like at
Okay.
ICC, our motto is ETR, educate, train, reinforce. We're educating, we're training, and we're constantly reinforcing. Can't tell me you told me, oh, I told them that one time. No, constant reinforcement, telling them over and over and over again. And I know some people say, well, I've already told them 10 times. Well, maybe they need to be told 10 more times. And maybe the way that we're telling them is not the correct way. So maybe
Right.
we need to look at what we're doing. Or do we have visuals? Do we have reminders up? Do we have steps? When I was a manager, I would have steps posted, cheat sheets up for my staff so they can look at it because they can't remember everything. Now that we have IFUs in Decontam, that helps also. But just having a quick visual that they can look at also helps them also.
You brought up staff, so I got a quick a question about the staffing aspect, but we're gonna take this commercial break real quick. When we come back, I got a question about that staff and that being able to speak to and what some. I got you. Right after this
Okay.
commercial, we're gonna talk about it.
Okay.
How can Steribump help you save money? Besides the extra costs and time, there are also fixed costs to consider when bundling blankets, such as the price of materials including disposable wrap and laundry costs. The estimated extra cost and time alone by using a blanket bundle method is about 50 minutes in labor costs, requiring at least these 8 steps. The choice of blanket. Roll blanket to form a bundle. Wrap bundle with a disposable wrap for sterilization. Sterilize bundle. Unroll the bundle after use. Wash blanket. Return blanket to supply. Lint removal. All of these extra steps create extra minutes and labor costs. Allow Steribump to help you save money. For more information, please contact Joe DeFrancesco at IMP Innovative Medical Products at 800-467-4944.
Again, big shout out to Calzura. Big shout out to IMP at Steribump. If you haven't seen it, please reach out and get a demo of that product today. Right before the break, you said the staff and speaking to and what do we bring you there for? So in that instance that you come in and you notice that the assessment's the staff, the processes could be okay, but it's the staff. When you're checking, it's the staff. How do you write that up in your report that you need to train, you need more people, you have the wrong people in the wrong roles? If that's part of your assessment, how do we address the staff in that aspect?
My role is not really to tell you the different people that you may have in a role. So if you have a manager in place, depending on, because everything is dependent on what senior leadership is looking for, they may tell me, unfortunately, to go in and assess the manager and see what is
Okay.
the manager doing. Is the manager, so everything flows back to the C-suite. What goals do you want to accomplish? What do we want to look at? Now, if there's a personnel problem, we can go in and look at the personnel, because sometimes when it's a personnel problem, it might not be a personnel problem. Each manager
Okay.
needs to know their staff, their strengths, their weaknesses. Is this a one off? What exactly is the issue? And if you have a problem person that's there that's causing problems, or several staff members that's causing problems, what have you done in the past to address these problems? And have you spoken to them, and what has been the result? Sometimes some people, and I know we're short staffed, but there's a time, if we've done everything, some people have to be let go. This might not be the place for you. Maybe we can find something else. But we want to try to engage those staff members. And engaging the staff members is engaging the staff members in your process. I can come and tell you all this
Right.
different stuff, but engaging your staff and speaking to your staff and finding out what are the issues you think is going on. That problem person or the problem staff that you're having, let's have a conversation and see, what do you see the problems are? What do you see what's going on? And you'd be surprised that the stuff that they tell you and the stuff that they see that's going on. And sometimes they're burnt out and they're just tired of being the ones that's doing everything and other people are not. So you may have an accountability issue. Are we holding staff accountable? It looked
So
like
in
you want to
that,
say something.
do you find do you find that certain systems work better than others for keeping an individual on track? Like I know you mentioned the being burnt out, or it's this and that, but do you see it where what kind of system normally would keep that person on track? What's the better system that you've seen since you've been in multiple facilities?
When you say system, what do you mean by system? Um, what do you mean by system? What system to keep
So
them on track?
yeah, like when you have those employees that are, I won't say,
Problems.
so you have those problematic people, or as the C-suite is saying, hey, evaluate this, evaluate that. What's the best type of, I guess, what's the best term that you've seen that, hey, pull that person back in, let's get the training back on track. If that is it really a problematic person? Is it like you said? Is it a one-off? Is something going on that day when you're there evaluating things are still happening? How does that play into your evaluation?
By observation. I'm observing and I'm also talking, having conversations with them, and then sometimes just asking the question, "What's going on? What's going on with you?" You
And that's
know,
what's that,
asking the question because I try to build a rapport with the staff members that are there. I'm not here just to point fingers at you or point and say what you're not doing. I want to highlight what you are doing great too. And but just having that conversation and seeing what's going on. What is the underlying issue? I understand where you're coming from because there's some people you can have the conversations, you can have the education, you can have the training, but they just don't want to act right. They still don't. They always looking to get over and seeing how much they less they can do than more than they can do. But you want to have that conversation. I'm assessing, I'm looking, I'm observing, but I'm also having that conversation to try to find out what other issues, because there's an underlying issue. You came into this job, you're here for a reason. So what's the underlying issue? What can I do to help you? I am here to assist you and make it better. And when you come to them and say, what can I do to
so
make it better? A lot of times it's money. Um, so we have to
right,
also look at, is your staff being compensated adequately? We know that there's an issue in SPD with pay. Are they being
right.
adequately compensated? If they're not being adequately compensated and they're being overburdened with work, then administration, C-suite need to look at, are we adequately compensating them? And if we're not, and if you want change, that's something that you all have control of that we can change.
So we started in the OR with the point of use. Hi, Marie. Marie checking in. We started in the OR with the point of use. We followed that process all the way down through decon. We followed it through decon. You're assessing the prep and pack areas, the sterilization. You did all of these things. You put together a report, 3 to 5 days, and you give them a real time assessment of what they need to do to improve. As you said, it could be much more longer if it's joint commission time and you're looking for specific things, but a normal assessment is 3 to 5 days. When you give your recommendation, do they ask you to come back? What's the implementation period during that time? Like you give them this assessment, say you need this, this, and this. What's the implementation period in that?
It depends on what we're looking at, because sometimes they can ask you to come back and help. And if they don't have the resources, you can be part of that implementation because sometimes they don't know how to implement it. You give them all these answers, but they may not have the knowledge or the skill set or the experience to implement it. So they may say, Keisha, can you come back? Can your team come back in here and spend a couple of months here to help us implement this until my manager's more comfortable, my team is more comfortable. Can you give us some ideas? So then you can, if you want me to come in, if you want the team to come in for a little longer, we can do that. So it
So it,
depends on the needs and what the goals are that you're trying to do. So there's not a set standard. There's not a set, oh, I'm gonna just be here 5 days. What are your goals? What are the end results? And then I can tell you what we can do within that time frame to get it done.
so in that aspect there, if a hospital or facility calls you and says, um, we need an interim manager or we need some staff or whatever the case may be. Let's go with the interim manager. We need an interim manager or interim director to come in. Do you have staff that you send in, or is it you going in yourself? Or how does that part work if they're looking to have you at this site and they have multiple facilities that's being run? What's that process like for you when they need an interim manager or director?
It depends. It if you it depends on what they, what they actually need. If they want, I have me and two other people.
Okay.
You want me to come in, I can be, because I'm an interim manager. I'm a manager, I'm a director, I can help you out. We do whatever we need to do to get the job done.
Okay.
We set up a time frame. They usually it can be a 3 month contract, or it can be 6 months, sometimes 9 months. It depends on what your needs are, because they'll bring you in interimly to help, transition a new manager in, but then you can't find a manager.
Right.
So I'm there for as long as you need me to be there. My team is there for as long as you need us to be
So when you go in as the interim, does that change the evaluation process? Because you're there on a contract for the facility, and does
there. Yeah,
that is
that's a little different.
so
If
it's two
I'm
separate
there
things?
interimly, I am there to keep your operations going. If I see stuff that are egregious, I have to let you know about them, because I'm not going
Okay.
to do anything egregious. I'm not going to do anything against standard. So it's my responsibility, and that's made, you're aware of that up front. So my responsibility is to make you aware of that, but it's a little different. The assessment is different. If I'm here as an interim, I'm not assessing all of your logistics operationally. I am here just to keep your operations moving and keep it going until you can get that permanent person in. Now,
So
if
yeah,
I see stuff that can be addressed, I can make you aware of it, but I'm not there to do a total assessment.
so is there any kind of inclusive package to say we need an interim, but we also want this stuff evaluated? Can they do that, or is it two separate entities altogether?
No, we work with it and we can do both. I'm flexible. We do whatever that's needed for that facility to get them to the result that they want with the goals that they have in mind. So we do whatever we need to do. So there's not a just a set, oh, okay, I can only do this, oh, we can only do that. It's different for each facility. As I keep saying, it's dependent on what the goals that they want, what are they trying to accomplish. And we will work with you and try to give you whatever goals that you're trying to accomplish.
Okay, family, y'all heard it here first today. Eyes to see management and consulting. Keisha, how can they reach you if they are trying to get some of your expertise to a facility or they just want you to assess? What can they do or how can they reach you?
The website is www.eyes2cmanagementconsulting.com or 1-800-334-1739.
Excellent. Family, there you have it. From a total process standpoint, coming from the OR, we assess the point of use all the way through the sterilization process. We are evaluating the processes themselves, seeing where the gaps and the holes lie. You heard her say it. I even walk in decon and I assess the PPE you're wearing. So it is definitely a total project when you're trying to get these little things fixed so that you two can be joint commission ready. Um, it's been a wonderful conversation, Keisha. I appreciate you. I know the information was there for everybody. It's been very informative. I like again, I learned some things as well, like the PPE part. Like I never knew that was part of the assessment when people come in, but that shows the level of commitment and dedication you have to the craft that you're doing there, where you can actually go in and tell people because of this procedure you're wearing the wrong PPE. That's a different level and something that I think everybody can now go back and look at for their facilities. Family, it's been time to talk. Great conversation, great family in the building. As always, next week, same time, same channel. We will see you soon. Big shouts out again to IMP, Calzura, Scrub Ball. Make sure you got your tickets. Make sure you get your tickets. We'll all be in the place. Again, family, thank you. I appreciate you. See you again soon. Thank you, Keisha.
Who that?
Oh, you had to throw one in there, right?